It's 6 o'clock, this is Sky News. We are live from Buckingham Palace on the final day of national celebrations for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Your Majesty, Mummy, Prince Charles pays tribute to the Queen for a lifetime of service.
You have met us and talked with us. You laugh and cry with us. And most importantly, you have been there for us for these 70 years.
Well, the royals sing along as tens of thousands celebrate outside Buckingham Palace and millions more watch on TV. The Queen didn't attend, but she still stole the show, finally revealing what is in her handbag.
Perhaps you would like a marmalade sandwich. I always keep one for emergencies.
So do I. I keep mine in here.
Well, this afternoon, the four-day royal extravaganza culminates in a pageant with thousands of performers parading through central London. And party like it's 1952, communities across the country are expected to come together for Jubilee street parties. Also to come this morning in the sport, it's a huge day for Wales, who have the chance to make a first World Cup finals appearance in 64 years when they take on Ukraine this afternoon. And we'll have a look at just how the morning's newspapers are reporting the Jubilee, including, of course, all that coverage of last night's brilliant party at the Palace. Good morning from Buckingham Palace on the fourth and final day of national celebrations for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. It is great to be here at our ringside seat and to have you with us as well. What a show last night. Good times never felt so good for thousands of royal fans who filled the Mall for last night's concert. Even Prince William was swaying along to Rod Stewart and Sweet Caroline. Well, one of the most memorable moments of the night was when Charles came on stage to pay tribute to his mother. He said, "You laugh and cry with us, and most importantly, have been there for us for these 70 years. But of course, the star of the show was the Queen herself. Our royal correspondent, Rhiannon Mills, reports.
The party atmosphere had built up early, thousands again filling the Mall, and the woman they all wanted to see had recorded a special welcome.
Perhaps you would like a marmalade sandwich. I always keep one for emergencies.
So do I. I keep mine in here.
Oh.
For later.
It was up to Queen to follow that, 20 years after performing on the roof of Buckingham Palace for her Golden Jubilee. Where on earth do you go from the roof?
Well, you will see. Somewhere different. Yeah, we've been working on it for months. It's very hard not to talk about it, actually. It's hard to keep that secret. But yeah, we have an interesting new place to go.
She wasn't here in person this time, but her family were, to watch a concert for every generation. From pop to rock, musicals to ballet, everyone wanting to pay their tribute.
2 years ago, I was singing in the corner of my shed, no idea that this would happen, or like Eurovision, or anything. I had no idea what was in store, like for my little path in music, and I'm just, so grateful and elated to be part of something like this.
She's a constant in our lives. I feel like she's been over my shoulder since I was a kid, because we're nearly the same age.
Alongside pop royalty, Prince William also took to the stage to celebrate the legacy of a woman who continues to guide them all.
It's my firm hope that my grandmother's words are as true in 70 years' time as they are tonight. That as nations we come together in common cause, because then there is always room for hope. Tonight has been full of such optimism and joy, and there is hope.
But it was his father and her heir who tried to express what the Queen means to so many with the warmest of words.
Your Majesty, Mummy, you have met us and talked with us. You laugh and cry with us. And most importantly, you have been there for us for these 70 years.
The star of the show was, of course, resting in Windsor, the crowds hoping she might be back for the final day of celebrations, as they couldn't make it any clearer how much the monarch and this moment means to them. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News at Buckingham Palace.
What an incredible night it was. It does feel like the morning after the night before. We are joined by the royal historian this morning, Tessa Dunlop, I'm glad to say. Any particular highlights for you?
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe this is the same place.
I know.
Watching it on telly, I think, was that an illusion? You come here and it's like, yeah, everyone's a bit bedraggled.
Yeah, it's like empty coffee cups and like, yeah, nothing there.
Green Park desperately looking to have a facelift. There were so many standout moments. The whole thing was a bit of an endurance course. I'm kind of glad the Queen wasn't there. Little George, and we focus always on the Queen, you know, and her great age, but there were tiny tots there, really. George, who'd been up to Cardiff earlier that day, I saw him waving from a carriage, looking really embarrassed on the Thursday, and he did have quite big bags under his arms by the end.
Bless him. I mean, a lot of people were hoping to see Louis as well, weren't they? Little Louis, but I guess he was just too young for the
bit of a
big
stretch.
show. Yeah,
Bit of a
tucked up
stretch.
in bed, probably.
But I thought it was... I mean, obviously, it was a big celebration of Britishness. We had Brian May in his sparkly silver and Rod Stewart, this bouncing ego. Will he ever go back in his box? I don't think so. In sort of mustard yellow, knocking it out. And then you saw the heir to the throne and Prince William, who will, of course, also one day be king, stand up and speak for their grandmother. And it was interesting. You realise it gets easier as you get older. William, what kind of role do you take as a 40-year-old man? It's, you know, it's a pop concert, and he came across as a bit of a dad, really, you know, a bit slightly awkward, banged on about the environment. No bad thing if Boris Johnson's in the audience, but perhaps a touch earnest. And my 13-year-old noticed he said mankind, not humankind.
Oh, dear.
But I think the prize of the night has to go to Prince Charles, really. Moving, he gets the laughs, he feels more comfortable, and that public school affectation, mummy. I mean, everyone just kind of loved it. The nation erupted in a little chuckle, didn't they? A belly laugh.
Yeah, it was like unexpected, wasn't it? The mummy, but then it did come across as very genuine as well. I mean,
I think as he'd knocked it out in one of the earlier Jubilees, I mean, we've been through a few now, he realised it's now his shtick. It is interesting. It's a sort of hangover from times gone by when children like Charles wrenched away from their parents when they still did call them mummy, and they hold on to it. And if you look at royal letters going back through the decades, they do use these terms, mummy and daddy, that most of us give up when we're, well, in senior school.
That is true. Lovely to chat, and I'm really glad to have you here throughout the morning. We'll have lots more to talk about, I'm sure, last night, but also, of course, looking ahead to the events later today. Let's have a look at how the morning's front pages are describing last night's festivities, shall we now? We can start with the Telegraph, and it photographs the Queen's wonderful tea party with Paddington Bear, probably my personal highlight, which featured, of course, in last night's concert. That's also the image on the front of the Times. It calls the event the party of a lifetime for the world's grandmother. Marmalade, Your Majesty? Asks the Mail. Get it? And then the Sun goes with Intruder at the Palace, making light of Paddington Bear's surprise appearance alongside the Queen. Let's have a look at the Express now. That quotes Prince Charles's speech from last night's concert. Thank you for being there for us, Mummy. And the Daily Mirror features the other Queen, Brian May, who performed for the royals in front of Buckingham Palace. And the Observer describes the Jubilee festivities as a long weekend and a carnival of memory. Great coverage there. Well, the celebrations, of course, culminate in today's Platinum Jubilee pageant. Lots to look forward to. Let's just give you a quick rundown of what to expect. It starts outside the Palace of Westminster. Then the procession heads up through Whitehall, past Number 10 and other government buildings as well. It then takes a turn at Trafalgar Square, going past Nelson's Column, before heading through Admiralty Arch. Coming out onto the Mall, it then travels towards the Queen Victoria Monument, that's the one outside Buckingham Palace, before turning onto Birdcage Walk along St James's Park to clear the way for those behind. The 3-kilometre route will be led by the Gold State Coach. Now, this is a 260-year-old carriage that carried the Queen to and from her coronation all the way back in 1953. And it starts at 2:30 p.m, so you don't want to miss that. And it will be a spectacle divided into 4 different acts. So Act 1 is a military display. It's titled For Queen and Country. So all 3 services are marching to honour their Commander-in-Chief, and they'll be joined by the armed forces of the Commonwealth as well. Act 2 is called The Time of Our Lives, and it showcases how British life has really changed over the Queen's reign. Let's Celebrate is a festival of street theatre, urban dance and carnival performances. Should be a particularly fun element, that. And then the final act is Happy and Glorious, as the performers come to a stop outside Buckingham Palace with some music from Ed Sheeran. The Platinum pageant concludes in a rendition of the national anthem that's performed by a gospel choir and the band of Her Majesty's Royal Marines. Well, with us this morning is the royal historian Tessa Dunlop. Let's go back to Tessa, shall we? It should be quite a spectacle later.
Yeah, I was thinking, which gig is more of a compliment? To be asked to close the whole Jubilee weekend, like Ed Sheeran has been, or to be out there rocking it like Brian May and Rod Stewart? I'm kind of betwixt and between on that one.
I mean, both pretty good slots, you have to say. They're kind of headline slots for both ones, right?
Do you suppose anyone turned it down? I was listening to one of the organisers last night on the radio, and she admitted, yeah, there were a few diva requests, but she wouldn't divulge which.
I'd love to know that. Maybe like a bit of sleuthing in the next couple of days.
I think so.
I'm sure it'll come out.
I think it's interesting, though, isn't it, just how long she's reigned for? Because, of course, the music didn't really even touch on her favourites. Obviously, Vera Lynn, who we quite recently lost, actually, Fred Astaire. Even the old stuff would have been to the Queen would seem like sort of beyond contemporary.
Yeah, that's
extraordinary bandwidth. And I thought sometimes the Royal Box looked like they didn't really feel too connected with the music, and no big surprise. I mean, it requires a sort of 70-year catalogue and enthusiasm.
Yeah, that's true, and have to keep up to date as well. I wonder if that will be a bit different with the pageant, because it does feel like elements of the pageant are reflecting, how society has changed, some of the sort of celebrities, perhaps, from years gone by as well.
Yeah, also, it's a pick and mix, and it's less static. Where you're standing, depending where you're viewing it, you're experiencing something different. I love the idea of that state coach. It's the 3rd oldest in Britain, under George III, and it's been, I think, refurbed something like 7 times. Can you imagine the sort of layers of gold paint? Don't chip it away. I was about to say chip it away, but don't go near it.
Don't do that.
But, I mean, of course, and the hologram, or the sort of, extraordinary images of the Queen that are going to be waving from the window.
I mean, the million-dollar question, I guess, is will we see her in person? And I guess we don't know at this point.
One is hoping. She's been saving herself to come out and close it. She certainly saved herself to be there 3 times on the opening day, and fingers crossed that she will close it out. Of course, it's not just her that was absent yesterday. I thought the Sussexes could have come and checked in on the concert.
But then I guess it's difficult for them, though, isn't it? Because they're sort of damned if they do, damned if they don't. Because then if they were there prominently, then all the papers this morning, and probably, the conversation as well.
Show, wouldn't they?
We would be stealing the show, we'd be analysing the body language. I feel like there's been some pretty careful choreography going on about their interactions with the rest of the royal family.
And are we meant to be thinking that perhaps they and their 1-year-old daughter Lilibet were sharing the marmalade sandwich with the Queen in Windsor last night?
Oh, wow, that's a very good point.
Possibly.
That is a good point. Be interesting to know, meeting her for the first time as well, of course.
And they have to be seen, of course, on her first birthday as hands-on parents, because remember that there's been criticism and wanting to do things differently.
That's
true. We talked just a moment ago about Charles going off to boarding school and being separated from a really early age, even earlier than boarding school, from his mother, because she was always on tour and so forth. So this is a different way of doing it, hands-on.
Yeah, definitely different. Lots more from you as the programme continues. So now, you could describe the Queen's 70-year reign as a journey from jelly to pakora. Well, Britain today is much more diverse than it was in the 1950s, and that will be reflected when communities across the country come together today to celebrate the Jubilee. And what hasn't changed much is weather. Let's really hope the rain does stay off. It feels like it's a kind of Jubilee tradition that it has to pour down. Let's listen now to Laura Bundock.
From Bournemouth's bunting on Coronation Day to Burton Joyce in Nottinghamshire, we've long marked the monarch's milestones. Britain, jubilant, joyful, and just a little eccentric. This is the village of Horsted Canes in West Sussex, the year 1953. The children all dressed up for the occasion. Not much has changed today, with events taking place on the same green.
I love fancy dress.
And this film inspiring the Platinum party planners.
It's just nice to just bring everyone back together again, especially after what's been happening the last few years. Everyone really needs it, you know, just to all of us to just pull together and have some nice time, really.
So to make the bunting, this is what I did last time.
From Sussex to Sheffield.
It's just a matter of stapling it to the string.
Lisa Moorman's streets making bunting.
I just remember everyone being so excited.
Here she is in 1977, enjoying the Silver Jubilee.
They had all of the street parties, they got all the children out, and it was just a great occasion. I remember that, and hopefully let's do something similar for our children to remember to pass on to theirs.
This park in Preston's promising England's biggest party, a Mela and multicultural meal for 600.
Preston is so diverse, it's got a lot of different ethnic minority community groups in the location, so it was important to reflect the residents of Preston to be here and let them feel part of this national celebration.
Some streets saw the forecast and brought their parties forward a day.
Waterproof bunting.
Here in Shirley, they've been buying waterproofs and umbrellas.
We're just improvising with as much plastic above head as possible that we can get on a budget. Because it's going to be a real shame if people just sort of come and everyone's huddled under their umbrellas and looking all miserable. We want everyone to be happy.
Whatever the weather, parties are playing out across the UK, remembering and reminiscing 70 years of rain. Laura Bundock, Sky News in Horsted Canes.
Really hope the rain does hold off those Jubilee parties. It looks pretty ominous here, I have to say. But of course, the Jubilee isn't the only big event this weekend. The last time that Wales qualified for the World Cup, Prince Charles was still at primary school and the Beatles hadn't even been formed. And of course, it is Wales's bad luck that tonight nearly everyone who isn't Welsh is probably going to be hoping it stays that way because they are taking on Ukraine for a place at Qatar 2022. Becky Johnson reports.
When Wales line up against Ukraine, support in this household will be split. Maria and her son Robert have been getting used to life in Cardiff. They left Ukraine 6 weeks ago to live with Sarah and her family in Wales. But the mutual support they share will be tested for 90 minutes. Maria will be at the match, cheering Ukraine.
So emotions so very big. I think I will be happy, and I believe Ukrainian team will be win. One man said, in Sunday we are not friends, but in Monday we will be friends again.
For Wales, though, the stakes are high. The players preparing to fight for a place in the World Cup for the first time in over 60 years. But to get there, they'll need to beat a side who'll have support from around the world.
If we could take away what they're going through in a heartbeat, we absolutely would, every single one of the staff and players. Now, this is business, and that's it. It's not spoken about in camp. This is an opportunity for Wales, for us, to qualify for a World Cup, and full focus is on that.
At this pub in Cardiff, memories from Euro 2016, when Wales reached the semi-finals, and tributes to their star player, as the nation hopes Gareth Bale and the team can build on recent success in the Euros. But 8-year-old James and his dad are nervous.
I'm feeling a little bit scared about Ukraine beating us?
Not in my lifetime we've been in a World Cup, so I think obviously after the Euros and the excitement of what Wales football have done, yeah, fingers crossed. If the result doesn't go our way, I don't think anybody will begrudge Ukraine going to the World Cup finals in the current situation, which is absolutely tragic.
The Ukraine side are fresh from victory in Scotland. They came out fighting midweek for their first game since their country was invaded. Team and manager determined to give their country something to celebrate. For both teams, it'll be emotional as they kick off here in Cardiff. Wales are used to being the popular underdogs in big matches, but this time they'll feel the support of the world against them as they try to do what no Welsh team has achieved for more than 6 decades. A win would mean the world to Welsh fans, but who would want to bet against Ukraine in this game of survival? Becky Johnson, Sky News, Cardiff. Good morning. You're watching Sky News Breakfast right here from our ringside seat at Buckingham Palace. Let's have a look now at our top stories. Prince Charles pays tribute to the Queen for a lifetime of service at a concert in her honour. The Queen didn't attend, but she still stole the show in a surprise appearance with another British icon. The Platinum Jubilee celebrations will draw to a close with a colourful street pageant today, with thousands of performers parading through central London. Now, it really was some concert last night. I'm sure everyone will have their own personal favourite moment with the rock band Queen, 2 future kings taking to the stage alongside, of course, a whole host of other stars as well. Now, Prince William used the occasion to call for some urgent action on climate change. It's something he's been speaking about an awful lot previously as well. But Prince Charles really stole the show in some ways. He praised his mother for her service to the country, calling her at one point Mummy. Let's have a quick listen to what Charles had to say.
Your Majesty, Mummy. The scale of this evening's celebration and the outpouring of warmth and affection over this whole Jubilee weekend is our way of saying thank you. Thank you from your family, the country, the Commonwealth, in fact, the whole world. On behalf of us all, I wanted to pay my own tribute to your lifetime of selfless service, in pictures, in words, and in light. Your family now spans 4 generations. You are our head of state, and you are also our mother. Your strength and stay is much missed this evening, but I am sure he is here in spirit. My papa would have enjoyed the show and joined us wholeheartedly in celebrating all you continue to do for your country and your people. Looking back, we think of the countless state occasions that are milestones along this nation's road. And you will think of red boxes filled with government papers at the end of the day. You will remember those who have led this country, indeed all the countries you serve, and leaders across the entire world. How things have changed. We think of all you have done to make the Commonwealth such an important force for good. You continue to make history. and there was still time for fun amongst the work. We might have been celebrating that Derby winner this evening. Next year, perhaps. But I know what really gets my mother up in the morning is all of you, ladies and gentlemen. All of you watching at home, represented here tonight in this great audience. Your Majesty, who have been with us in our difficult times, and you bring us together to celebrate moments of pride, joy, and happiness. Maybe this year, it really is coming home. You have met us and talked with us. You laugh and cry with us. And most importantly, you have been there for us for these 70 years. You pledged to serve your whole life. You continue to deliver. That is why we are here. That is what we celebrate tonight. These pictures on your house are the story of your life and ours. So, Your Majesty, that is why we all say thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know the Queen is watching these celebrations with much emotion, having, I hope, finished her marmalade sandwich, including immense regret that she cannot be here in person with us this evening. But Windsor Castle is barely 20 miles away, so if we cheer loudly enough, she might just hear us. So let's all join together.
What a moment that was. And of course, we're going to have lots more moments later today, the culmination of the 4-day festivities, because millions of people are expected to attend street parties for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations, braving the rain, which I have to say, it does look like it might not be far off. The big Jubilee lunch is the brainchild of the Eden Project. So we're joined now by the head of UK delivery at the Eden Project Communities, Tracy Robbins. I get my words out there. It's still a bit early. I need another cup of coffee, I think. So talk to me a bit about the big lunch. What's the idea?
So the big lunch was, as you say, a brainchild of Eden Project, and it was all about just trying to get people and their neighbours to come together over lunch. So people tend to need permission or a reason to knock on their neighbour's door and come together. And we know when people come together, good things happen. So we just thought, how do we take that message of Eden, connecting people to each other in the living world, out to the nation? And we used the big lunch.
And a lot of people have signed up to this.
Yeah.
The numbers were pretty astonishing if you look through them.
They're incredible. So this is the second time in our history that we've underpinned the Jubilee. So we're really, really proud that the Platinum Jubilee Big Lunch is part of the official celebrations. And on a normal year, we'll have 7,000 to 12,000 pack requests. We've had 100,000 pack requests this year. I don't know what we'd do without the lottery. It's been immense. And people are saying, oh, we think there'll be 12 million. Now it's 15. I think if the rain holds off, we're looking at 18 personally.
18 million.
I think so.
That's a big, big proportion. And of course, you've got the official, packs, but obviously millions of people around the country are just going to be having unofficial parties, lunches, street parties.
Well, it doesn't matter whether it's official or unofficial.
Yeah.
If people are coming together, they're joining in. And what we have to remember is this is a once-in-a-lifetime occasion. None of us will see another Platinum Jubilee, not even children. And I think it's where memories and connections are made, you know, so the legacy will live on from this, definitely.
Yeah. Just hearing in my ear the director just saying, sort of not the director, the producer just saying his 5-year-old wanted a tea party with her dollies. And I think that just, sorry, just Andrew, but it does just sum it up, doesn't it? Everyone wants to celebrate in any way that they can, and all of these different ways of, you know, paying tribute to the Queen and also having a bit of a celebration are really legitimate.
And it can be really small, you know, so we always say the big in the big lunch or the big Jubilee lunch is us all doing it together at the same time. You know, actually, it could be you and 10 neighbours or you and 3 neighbours. It doesn't matter. It's about joining together and just joining in this occasion.
That said, there are going to be a few big
there's some
bumper
monumental
occasions,
ones.
aren't there? Anything in particular you've got your eye on?
Well, I think Windsor they're going to go for the longest sort of street afternoon tea, which I think will be quite spectacular. In Preston, we've got about 10,000 people coming out today. We've got in Morecambe, where I was on Thursday, they're looking at doing a 2.5-kilometre stretch of tables, so they're going for the longest one and expecting about 5,000 people join in. In Enniskillen, the castle is doing a whole big display and encouraging everybody to come. So there's absolutely loads of stuff happening in all 4 nations.
And it does feel like it's a bit of a tradition, doesn't it? This is something that has been going on, you know, all the way back to the 50s, the 60s. I think we can show some images, perhaps, of the kind of big lunches and the street parties of the past as well. It does feel like a very British tradition, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think not just British, but across the whole UK. So, and I think we're even seeing them happening across the Commonwealth. So people really want to be that sense of belonging and all doing the same thing at the same time. I think people love to celebrate.
And what are your own plans then?
Well, after this, I'll be bobbing along to the Oval. So we've got a flagship Jubilee Big Lunch hosted there with all the Platinum Jubilee volunteers and people who have made amazing changes in communities where they live. And we have special guests, their Royal Highnesses, Prince Charles and Camilla. So, yes, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, pretty good. Well, I have to say, whether it's, you know, Prince Charles and Camilla or if it's the dolls around the table, I think, you know, whatever way, lots of people celebrating in style later. Let's hope the weather holds off. Thank you very much for coming on the programme today. Well, let's talk about that all-important weather, shall we, and see how it is looking for all of those street parties.
Warm memories wherever you go. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, the northern parts of the country will stay mostly fine today, but there will be some showery outbreaks elsewhere. Some will be heavy and thundery. The northwest will be clear and chilly at first with a patchy ground frost, but it will be mostly cloudy and mild elsewhere with some heavy showers, I'm afraid, in the south. So north doing better than the south when it comes to those street parties. The northern parts will have a mainly fine morning today for the street parties once that low cloud burns off.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, it's hard to really believe that the big show took place here just last night. We're going to have a look at all the Jubilee coverage in the morning papers of the big event. Hello, welcome back to Sky News' coverage of the Jubilee right here from Buckingham Palace. Time now to have a look at this morning's newspapers. We'll see what they've made of the celebrations so far. Joining us once again is Tessa Dunlop, the royal historian. So we're going to be looking through the papers together. But let's just show you the main headlines, starting with the Telegraph. It photographs the Queen's tea party with Paddington Bear, which featured, of course, in last night's special concert. That's also the image on the front page of the Times today. It calls the event the party of a lifetime for the world's grandmother. Marmalade, Your Majesty, asks the Mail on Sunday. And the Sun on Sunday goes with Intruder at the Palace, making light of Paddington Bear's surprise appearance there alongside the Queen. Let's have a look now at the Sunday Express. That quotes Prince Charles' speech from last night's concert. Thank you for being there for us, Mummy. The Sunday Mirror features the other Queen of last night, Brian May, who performed for the royals in front of Buckingham Palace. And The Observer describes the Jubilee festivities as a long weekend and a carnival of memory. It's quite a nice phrase, that, isn't it? Carnival of memory. Well, let's have a little look in more depth now, shall we, at some of the stories in the papers. Tessa, thanks for being with us. Paddington is on the front of nearly every paper, isn't it, today?
It's a gift, and he has international appeal, Paddington, as does the Queen. So this is something that's going to once again beam Britain beyond our borders. And I thought quite a clever opener, you know, the first half hour when the wee kiddies stay up, you know, to see the Queen, and obviously an anticipation that she probably wasn't going to be there in person, and so something needed to be pre-recorded. And capitalising on that wonderful Olympic appearance when she jumped out of the... Was it a helicopter or an aeroplane?
I think... Oh, goodness, you're testing... I think it was a helicopter.
So,
testing
blew us ahoy.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's really kind of got into that groove, hasn't she? And we've come to love her for it.
It's been great. And I'm the kind of person who... I can find these things slightly cringe, if I'm being honest. But I thought it was actually on the money. It was really cute. And... yeah, it got me, actually. I thought it was really lovely.
Yeah, and partly because her fragility was on display as well.
That's true, yeah.
You know, she is a seriously old woman. I work predominantly with women the Queen's age, and there is something almost beautiful because you realise nothing goes on forever, and there's extremely precious those final few years. And I think that's what she looked. She looked really precious.
Yeah, she did. She did. Well, let's have a look at the next paper, shall we? This is the... Are we going to the Times next?
Times next. Get
We'll
our
do the
order
Times
right.
next, exactly. And actually, this is interesting, the headlines on the Times. Party of a lifetime for the world's grandmother. And I think that actually does tap into what you were saying. The fragility on display with her, with the little sketch with Paddington. And it does, I guess... It just enhance people's affection for her.
It does, and it's a reminder of how rarely we see people of extreme old age. We have over 500,000 nonagenarians in this country, but very rarely are they front and centre of anything.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is, of course, for health and the difficulties of actually getting somebody from A to B. One of the old veterans who was in the same service as the Queen, she came down to celebrate from Selby, and it was a magnus opus, you know, just to cross the country. It is a big deal. So it is, I think that's one of the really important things about this latter stage of her reign, is that she's become this symbol of continuity, but also of old age, a celebration, if you like, and just how much effort it does take, and we need to recognise that. What's interesting, here we have the world's grandmother and the affection, the outpouring. Michelle Obama had a message for her. We've heard people like Macron, who's not big on the British.
Yeah, I was quite surprised to see that, actually. It's true.
Just showing how neutral she is. She's like the Switzerland of Britain, if you like, for mixing my metaphors.
Yeah.
But I think, when did this happen, this great rehabilitation, if you think how bad the 90s were?
You see, this is interesting, isn't it? Because it's easy to think that we always had this affection for the Queen, and she could always do no wrong, but actually she did go through these more difficult periods.
Really difficult. And I think that's, when we look at her relationship with, I think, 14 prime ministers now, or is it 13? Probably the one she doesn't hold in dearest affection is Tony Blair. And there was this tension, a slight sense that, is the Prime Minister steering the Queen, trying to bring her down to Buckingham Palace in the wake of Diana's death, and the Queen finding her way then, as we all were. And there was a transition from the Annus Horribilis, the terrible death of Diana in '97, and then the Golden Jubilee. There was a gear change. Somehow she emerged in that Jubilee as this symbol of endurance. And again, not perfect, but who is?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, who is, exactly.
It's the beginning of the national treasure stage of her life.
The Sunday Express has got that quote from Prince Charles's quite moving speech, I thought, actually. Thank you for being there for us, Mummy. And I guess that taps into what you were saying, doesn't it? That the endurance of the Queen, the fact that in a period where it feels as if society has just changed so much over the last 70 years, she has been the constant.
Yeah, and also what's been demanded of her as the head of an institution that is all about preserving tradition, preserving the myths around nationhood, actually being a break in some ways on sort of unfettered progress, to have lived through and led through an era that's never seen such great change for women alone. Sophie, we wouldn't have been here.
That's true. And it's a bit of a check, isn't it, actually? It does make you realise how much she has... how much she has lived through and how much has just changed in that time. Just quite incredible.
And just to go back to William's speech earlier, I ribbed him a bit. He said, you know, mankind put man on the moon when he was referring to what the change she'd lived through. And I thought, I should have said humankind, William. He corrected it later. He said, but actually, it was mainly men who put man on the moon in the 60s.
Yeah, it was. And there was a reason that mankind on the moon, that man on the moon, that is just a normal way that we spoke then. Finally, let's just have a quick look at the Observer. And I think it's interesting, isn't it? We were just talking before we came on air about the rehabilitation, not only of the Queen, but also of the flag.
Yeah, because it was hijacked by Brexit. I think for a long time, the English flag felt like a sort of symbol of, well, almost sort of jingoism, didn't it? If you saw it flying in a garden, the red and white, it was like, woo, what's going on there? And the British Union Jack always felt more flexible and inclusive, and that was put in jeopardy with Brexit to an extent. I think it became a sort of political campaigning motif, and I think this Jubilee's reclaimed the Union Jack into a more neutral space that even the Labour Party want a bite of.
I mean, I guess the pro-Brexit supporters would say that they used the flag and patriotism in a way that perhaps the establishment, if you like, had become uncomfortable with. And the fact that it was popular, clearly, with a big proportion of the population, that seems to be what Labour Party and the Keir Starmer are trying to tap into now.
Yeah, it's interesting that, but I think because Brexit is seen certainly north of the border as a very English vote or English decision, that I think that kind of tainted the Union Jack's ability to speak to all four nations, as of course the royal family very keen to do. You noticed yesterday, I mean, the Cambridges were out in Wales one minute and back at the palace the next. I thought, how did they get there? Jumbo jet. But yeah, this is interesting. I think Labour clearly recognising, and this a Labour paper, The Observer, which historically has always had the sort of tinge of republicanism, once again, Guardian Observer going for the full frontal on Jubilee coverage. They've kind of capitulated, haven't they? They're like, we can't compete with the Queen.
Yeah, there we go. And it does feel, doesn't it, that even people who are, staunchly Republican, and I'm sure there are many people who, have mixed feelings, shall we say, about the royal family, particularly after some of the difficult headlines more recently, the Queen is held in affection, isn't she?
Yeah, and we've seen that even when the Sussexes are criticising the firm, they very carefully make an exception of the firm's CEO, which is a bit paradoxical. Arguably, what they're one and the same, but they always say, we're not talking about the Queen, we love the Queen. So she is.
OK.
And that's the gift of not saying too much, perhaps.
Thank you so much. Talking about not saying too much, we have to go to the break. Lots more still to come on Sky News Breakfast.